The Saturday night rain came down in thin, cold sheets, the kind that soaked through jackets in seconds and made the city glow with reflections from passing headlights. Elena Dawson hurried across the slick pavement with her 6-year-old daughter Lucy held close to her chest. Her restaurant uniform was damp from a long double shift, her shoes squishing with every step. By the time they pushed open the door of the small convenience store at the corner, warm fluorescent light washed over them like a temporary shelter. Elena exhaled quietly, brushing Lucy's wet bangs aside. She had come for one thing, only one thing she could afford tonight: a candle. The bulb in their apartment had burned out a week ago, and every dollar that wasn't for rent or food had already been stretched past its limit. A simple vanilla-scented candle was the only light she could bring home. She walked past rows of snacks, pre-packaged sandwiches, soft drinks, and a small rack of cheap toys. Lucy's eyes lingered on a tiny plastic tiara, but Elena gently guided her forward. "Just a minute, sweetheart," she whispered, hoping her voice didn't betray how exhausted she felt. They reached the aisle where the candles sat. Elena picked up a small beige one with a label that read, "Vanilla Glow, Soft Warm Light." It was the cheapest. Lucy tugged her sleeve and asked in a small voice, "Mom, is tomorrow my little birthday?" Elena swallowed. "Yes, baby, we'll have a light." A nice light. She didn't dare promise more. At the counter, she placed the candle down and searched through her thin wallet. A faded coupon, a few wrinkled bills, and a handful of coins. She handed over her member card, printed clearly with Elena Dawson, hoping to get an extra discount. The cashier rang it all up, then said apologetically, "You're short." 87 cents. Elena froze. Heat rushed to her face. She swept her coins again, hoping one had been missed, but it was still not enough. Someone behind her shuffled. She felt the familiar sting of humiliation rising. She forced a smile. "I'm sorry. I'll just..." Her fingers closed around the candle, ready to hand it back. Then a calm male voice behind her said, "I've got it." Elena turned. A tall man in a dark suit stood behind her, rain droplets still clinging to the shoulders of his jacket. Slicked back brown hair, defined jawline, posture confident, yet strangely gentle. Nothing about him fit inside this tiny convenience store on a rainy night. He stepped forward, pulling out his card. "Put everything on this," he told the cashier. The cashier blinked. "Everything, sir?" "Everything in her basket." Elena's heart lurched. "No, please, you don't have to." But the man only gave her a soft, reassuring look before tapping his card on the reader with practiced ease. The register beeped. Done. The cashier began bagging canned soup, instant noodles, a small carton of milk items Elena had hesitated to take, but Lucy had quietly placed in the basket earlier. Elena tried again. "Sir, I can't accept. It's cold outside," he said simply. "Let me help." As he spoke, Lucy peeked from behind Elena's leg, studying his face with a strange seriousness. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "Mom, he looks like the man in your old picture." Elena's breath caught. "Lucy," she whispered sharply, "don't say things like that." But the man had heard. A flicker of confusion, or was it recognition, crossed his eyes. The cashier handed him the receipt, still warm from the machine. His gaze dropped briefly to the printed name, Elena Dawson. Something about it made his expression shift just slightly, but enough for Elena to notice. She quickly gathered the bags, thanked him in a trembling voice, and headed toward the door. Rain hammered against the glass. As the door slid shut behind them, Elena felt Lucy lean her head against her shoulder, murmuring, "Mom, he was nice." But Elena couldn't shake the knot in her chest. Being helped felt like relief and shame woven tightly together. She stepped under the store awning, adjusting Lucy's coat, trying to decide if they should wait out the storm or brave the walk home. Meanwhile, just inside the store, the man Adrian stood still for a moment, eyes following the blurred silhouettes of mother and daughter through the rain. The name on the receipt echoed in his memory like a quiet bell. Elena Dawson. He whispered it once under his breath, as if testing a memory long buried. And then, with a look that suggested he had just recognized the past brushing up against the present, he stepped out into the rain behind them. Rain splattered against the pavement in restless waves as Elena stepped out from under the convenience store awning, clutching the grocery bags to her chest while Lucy leaned sleepily against her shoulder. The cold wind bit at their damp clothes, and Elena hesitated, unsure whether to try catching the next bus or walk the 20 minutes home through puddles and dark alleys. She adjusted the bags, shielding the small vanilla candle as if it were something fragile and precious. She didn't notice Adrian stepping out behind them until he spoke. "It's getting worse," he said quietly. Elena turned quickly. Adrian stood under the same awning, his shoulders wet from the rain, a black umbrella in his hand. He wasn't rushing to his car. He wasn't passing by. He was simply waiting. Her pulse tightened. "Thank you again," she said, trying to sound composed. "We'll be fine from here." She shifted her weight toward the sidewalk, but a sudden gust of wind made Lucy flinch and bury her face in Elena's neck. Adrian stepped closer and opened his umbrella above both of them, the fabric popping open sharply in the rain. "Please," he said, his voice gentle. "At least let me walk you to the car." Elena blinked. "Car?" He nodded toward the small parking lot. Only then did she see a sleek dark sedan parked beneath a street lamp. Lucy peeked at him with wide eyes. "Mommy," he came to help again. Elena didn't respond, but she didn't pull away when Adrian shifted the umbrella to cover all three of them. As they walked toward the car, Lucy gazed up at him with curiosity far too mature for her 6 years. "You really look like the man in Mom's picture," she murmured. Adrian's steps slowed. "Picture?" he asked, gently. Elena's heart jumped. "She's just being silly," she said quickly, forcing a soft laugh. "Kids imagine things." Adrian didn't push, but the way he quietly nodded told her he had noticed her tension. He opened the back door for Lucy, helping the child climb in without getting further soaked. Elena buckled her in, smoothing Lucy's damp hair with trembling fingers before settling into the passenger seat. A faint glow from the dashboard lit the car's interior. Elena didn't even glance at the emblem on the center console, Aurora Holdings, though it gleamed in front of her like an unspoken truth. Adrian started the engine, warmth slowly filling the car. The wipers swept away heavy droplets as he guided the car out of the lot. For a moment, no one spoke. The rhythmic slap of rain against the windshield created a fragile bubble of quiet around them. Adrian broke the silence first. "Where do you live?" Elena hesitated, unsure if sharing her address with a stranger, no matter how kind, was wise. But Lucy, drowsy and trusting, leaned forward and whispered the name of their street. Elena closed her eyes, defeated by her daughter's honesty. "It's an old building," she muttered. "Second floor," Adrian nodded, careful not to pry. "Long day?" The question was simple, but Elena felt it land deep in her chest. "Double shift," she answered softly. "The bus was late." "We got caught in the rain," Lucy added from the back seat. "Mommy always works a lot." Elena's throat tightened. Adrian glanced at the rearview mirror, his gaze warm. "Your mom is doing an amazing job," he told Lucy. "You should be very proud of her." Lucy smiled sleepily, and Elena turned her face toward the window, trying to hide the sting in her eyes. She didn't know why his words felt like a hand gently touching a bruise. As the car approached her neighborhood, the streetlights grew fewer and dimmer. Buildings looked older, more worn. When they reached her complex, the hallway light on her floor flickered weakly, another reminder of the burnt-out bulb the landlord never fixed. Adrian parked and stepped out first, opening an umbrella before circling around to the passenger side. He held it over Elena while she unbuckled Lucy. "Thank you," she murmured again, feeling the phrase grow too small for the moment. They climbed the creaking stairs together. At Elena's door, Adrian paused, looking at the cracked paint, the draft under the frame, the dark hallway. Something in his expression tightened recognition, maybe, or memory. He handed her the umbrella. "Keep it. You'll need it more than I will." She shook her head. "I can't take. It's just an umbrella," he said softly. "Let me give you at least that." For a moment, neither moved. The rain drummed on the metal railing outside. Lucy sniffled lightly against her mother's shoulder. Elena finally accepted the umbrella with trembling fingers. "Good night," she whispered. "Really?" "Thank you," Adrian nodded, stepping back slowly. But before turning away, his eyes drifted once more to Elena, as if something about her voice, her face, her name pulled at a memory he couldn't yet grasp. "Good night," he said. Then he walked down the hallway, the echoes of his footsteps fading into the dim stairwell. Elena closed her door, leaning her back against it as her heart kicked hard against her ribs. Why did this stranger feel like a fragment of a past she thought was long lost? Outside, Adrian stopped at the bottom of the steps. Rain pooled around his shoes, but he didn't seem to notice. He looked up at the row of dim windows, searching for the silhouette of a woman holding a child and wondering how fate had brought him back to a name he hadn't spoken in years. Elena Dawson. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the tall windows of Adrian's office at Aurora Holdings, illuminating polished surfaces and stacks of neatly arranged documents. The city stretched below him, sleek, orderly, far from the dim hallways and cracked paint of Elena's apartment building. Yet Adrian wasn't looking at any of it. He sat at the edge of his desk, elbows on his knees, staring at the crumpled convenience store receipt he had pulled from the pocket of his coat. The paper was slightly damp from the night before, its ink smudged at the corners, but still legible enough. At the top, member card, Elena Dawson. He whispered the name again. Elena Dawson. It sounded familiar in a way that tugged at something deep in his chest, something he hadn't revisited in years. His assistant, Mara, knocked lightly and stepped inside. "Your 9 o'clock meeting is ready, Mr. Hala. The board is waiting." Adrian didn't lift his gaze. Mara glanced at the paper in his hand, confused. "Sir?" Adrian finally looked up, his expression far more unsettled than she had ever seen. "Give them my apologies," he said. "Reschedule it to this afternoon," Mara blinked. "All of them?" "Yes." He stood abruptly, sliding the receipt into his coat like it was something fragile he didn't dare leave behind. Mara tried to ask more, but he was already walking past her, heading for the elevator with a determination that made no sense to anyone except himself. In the underground garage, the echo of his footsteps sounded sharper, faster than usual. As he drove, memories threaded themselves to the rain-smeared windshield, fragmented images of a neighborhood much like Elena's, though in his childhood it had seemed enormous. He remembered narrow staircases and drafty windows. He remembered his mother working double shifts, always coming home exhausted, lighting a cheap vanilla candle whenever the power flickered. But most of all, he remembered a girl. A girl with warm brown eyes who lived across the courtyard. Elena. She used to sit with him on the old concrete steps, tracing shapes in chalk while telling him that the vanilla candles made their tiny homes feel like palaces. Then one day, her family was gone overnight without warning. He was 12. She was the same age. He never saw her again, until now. Could it really be her? When he reached her building, the answer didn't wait long. He spotted her at once trying to balance a heavy trash bag while holding Lucy against her hip. Lucy looked pale, half asleep on her mother's shoulder. Elena struggled with the stairs, pausing every few steps to catch her breath. Adrian parked quickly and approached before he could second-guess himself. "Elena?" he called gently. She jumped slightly and turned. Her tired eyes widened when she recognized him. What are you doing here?" He came closer, hands raised as if approaching a frightened bird. "I wanted to make sure you both got home safe last night." Elena shifted the bag of trash and gave a curt nod. "We did, thank you, but you didn't have to come all the way back." Adrian noticed how carefully she avoided meeting his gaze. He also noticed the faint dark circles under her eyes. Then he said it plainly, unable to hold it any longer. "I think we've met before." Elena froze. What? Years ago, he continued quietly. When we were kids, you lived across the courtyard from me. We used to sit on the steps together. Her lips parted slightly, but she quickly shook her head. You must be mistaken. I don't know anyone from that world anymore. Lucy, half awake, tugged her mother's sleeve. Mom, the picture in your drawer. Lucy, Elena interrupted sharply. Not now. She adjusted her daughter's weight and stepped past Adrian, attempting to remain composed despite the tremor in her hand, but he wasn't discouraged. Something in her reaction, something like fear or recognition, confirmed what he already sensed. Elena, he said softly, could we talk tonight? Please, there's something important we should clear up. She stopped for a moment at the foot of the stairs, her back partially turned to him. The hallway light flickered above her, casting shadows across the peeling paint. I don't know, she murmured. My schedule is full, and it's not a good idea. He didn't push. I'll be nearby if you change your mind. She didn't answer, only climbed the remaining stairs, disappearing into the dim hallway with Lucy's legs wrapped loosely around her waist. Adrian stood there until he heard a door close upstairs. Then, slowly, he exhaled and ran a hand through his hair. The past was catching up, and so was something else, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. As he walked back toward his car, he murmured the name again, each syllable stirring both longing and disbelief. Elena Dawson. He had found her, or fate had found her for him. The power outage hit just after sunset. The entire hallway outside Elena's apartment went dark, swallowing the thin yellow light that usually flickered above her door. Inside, the old building groaned as the electricity cut out with a tired sigh, leaving the small room dim and silent. Lucy sat cross-legged on the floor, clutching her stuffed bear as she looked up at her mother. Mommy, it's really dark. Elena steadied her breathing and knelt beside her daughter. It's okay, sweetheart. She reached into the grocery bag and pulled out the small vanilla candle she had bought, the one that had started everything. She lit it carefully, cupping her hand around the flame as it grew. A soft, warm glow spread across the cramped apartment. Lucy's face lit up instantly. It looks like a tiny birthday light, she giggled. Maybe this can be my pretend birthday. Elena smiled, though her heart pinched painfully. Maybe it can, she said. She wished she had more to give her daughter than a flickering candle and an empty promise. A sudden knock on the door made her tense. She wasn't expecting anyone, and the building rarely had visitors. She set the candle onto the chipped coffee table and approached the door with caution. Who is it? It's Adrian, came the gentle reply. Elena froze, breath catching in her throat. She opened the door a crack, and there he stood, Adrian Hall, slightly out of breath, hair damp as if he had run through the evening drizzle. In his hands were 2 warm paper bags and a small carton. The power's out in half the neighborhood, he said softly. I thought, maybe you and Lucy could use something warm. Elena hesitated. Her instinct told her to keep distance, but something in his expression concern, familiarity, or maybe the quiet patience he always carried made her step aside. Come in, she whispered. Adrian entered slowly, taking in the tiny apartment illuminated only by the candle on the table. The walls were clean but bare, the furniture mismatched yet carefully kept. He noticed the towel by the window that blocked a draft, the box of crayons spilled near Lucy's feet. The way everything seemed placed with intention, even if there wasn't much to place. Lucy perked up when she saw him. You came back, she said, delighted. Adrian smiled and knelt to her height. I did. Brought dinner too. He unpacked warm containers, rice, soup, a small carton of milk. The aroma filled the room, making Lucy exclaim with excitement. They sat together on the table, the 3 of them sharing a simple meal beneath the soft glow of the candle. The shadows danced gently on their faces. For a moment, Elena allowed herself to breathe. It's been a while since we had a meal like this, she admitted quietly. Not fancy or anything. Just warm. Adrian listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't pity, just listened. You do so much on your own, he said. It's okay to let people help sometimes. Elena gave a half smile and shook her head. I can't rely on anyone. I learned that the hard way. She traced the rim of her cup, eyes distant. When I got pregnant, Lucy's father left. My parents said I ruined my life, and they stopped speaking to me. I've been alone ever since. Adrian's heart clenched. He wanted to reach across the table, but he kept his hands still. You've been incredibly strong, he said. But you don't have to carry everything alone. Silence settled between them. The candle flickered softly, its scent warm and nostalgic. Adrian looked at it for a long moment before murmuring, almost to himself, You still like vanilla candles? Elena's head snapped up, her breath hitched. The words struck her like a memory she wasn't prepared to face. What did you say? Adrian met her eyes, his voice gentle but certain. You used to say vanilla made your house feel like a palace. Even when the lights went out. She stared at him, really stared. The candlelight reflected in his eyes, the same warm brown she had once known in a boy who shared chalk drawings with her on cracked concrete steps. Adrian, she whispered, the recognition finally settling over her like a long-lost truth. He nodded, a small, aching smile forming. Yes, it's me. For a moment, neither spoke. The weight of the years between them hung in the air, broken only by the soft crackle of the candle. But then Elena's expression shifted. Her guard slammed back into place, sharp and instinctive. That was a long time ago, she said quickly. We're not kids anymore. You're a CEO. I'm this. She gestured around the modest apartment. Whatever we were back then doesn't matter now. Adrian opened his mouth to answer, but at that moment, the lights suddenly snapped back to life, flooding the room with harsh white glow. Lucy clapped, delighted. But Elena flinched, as if the sudden brightness exposed too much. She stood abruptly and began clearing the table, avoiding his gaze entirely. The moment between them shattered like glass. Adrian watched her, knowing she was shutting the door not to him, but to hope itself. And he wasn't ready to leave, not yet. The next morning arrived with a strange heaviness in the air, as if the world itself knew something had shifted the night before. Elena barely slept after Adrian left. She kept replaying his voice, You still like vanilla, and the look on his face when she recognized him. But she also remembered the flash of harsh white light when the power returned, breaking whatever fragile thread had formed between them. She pushed those thoughts away. Reality was louder. Rent was due. Her shift started at 8, and Lucy needed breakfast. By the time Elena arrived at the small diner where she worked, she had forced her emotions back into their familiar locked place. But the moment she pushed through the back door, she sensed something was off. The kitchen staff fell silent. 2 waitresses leaned together by the coffee station, whispering until they noticed her and abruptly straightened. Elena blinked. Morning, she said carefully. No one responded. A minute later, her manager, Denise, stormed out of the office holding a phone. Her expression was tight with irritation. Elena, my office. Now, Elena's stomach dropped. She followed her inside, clutching her apron strings. Denise turned her phone around, showing a social media post grainy, taken from across the convenience store parking lot. The photo was unmistakable. Adrian holding an umbrella over Elena and Lucy, leaning slightly toward them with concern. The caption read, CEO Adrian Hawley seen late night with single mom. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, some curious, some cruel. Elena felt her breath leave her. No, she whispered. This isn't. I don't care what it is, Denise cut in sharply. But you bringing drama into my restaurant is not acceptable. People are calling, asking if you're dating the CEO. We don't need this kind of publicity. I didn't ask for any of this, Elena said, voice shaking. Someone took the picture without me knowing. Then fix it, Denise snapped. Or your hours are getting cut. Elena stumbled out of the office, cheeks burning with humiliation, throat tight. As she stepped onto the diner floor, she saw two teenage girls pointing at her, whispering. Another server sent her a pitying glance before turning away. All she wanted was to disappear. After her shift, she hurried to Lucy's school, praying the storm hadn't reached there. But as soon as Lucy came running out, Elena saw her red eyes. "Mommy," she whimpered, clutching Elena's jacket. "Kids said my daddy is a rich man and you're in trouble." Elena's chest tightened painfully. She crouched, smoothing Lucy's hair. "Sweetheart, none of that is true. People just say things when they don't understand. But I don't like it," Lucy cried softly. "I don't like when they talk about you." "I know," Elena whispered, hugging her close. "Neither do I." When they returned to the apartment, the landlord was waiting by the stairs, arms crossed. "Ah, Miss Dawson," he said with a knowing smirk. "Saw your picture online. If you're seeing someone wealthy, I'll have to reconsider your rent rate. You know, adjustments." Elena felt her entire body flush with fury and fear. "I'm not seeing anyone," she said firmly. "And you can't raise my rent for rumors," the landlord shrugged. "Life's expensive. You understand." She pushed past him, carrying Lucy up the stairs while trembling from the inside out. As soon as the apartment door closed behind them, Lucy began coughing deep, raspy wrong. Elena touched her forehead. Hot, too hot. Panic shot through her. Lucy had been sniffling since last night, but she hadn't expected it to turn this quickly. "Come on, baby," she said, grabbing a jacket and wrapping Lucy in it. "We're going to the clinic." It was raining again. The streets glistened, and the wind stung Elena's cheeks as she hurried through the night, Lucy limp against her shoulder. The nearest low-cost clinic was crowded, noisy, and understaffed. Elena waited, bouncing Lucy gently as the child shivered in her arms. After nearly an hour, Lucy whimpered, "Mommy, I want to go home." Elena's voice broke. I know, sweetheart." A nurse rushed by, too overwhelmed to stop. Elena's fear deepened. Lucy's breathing was uneven now. She couldn't stay. She stood and tried to adjust her daughter's weight, determined to bring her home and figure out another way. She pushed the clinic door open and stopped. Rain hammered the pavement. And there, standing under a drenched hooded coat, chest rising and falling as if he'd been searching everywhere, was Adrian. His eyes widened with fear when he saw Lucy slumped in Elena's arms. "Elena," he said, stepping forward immediately. "Why didn't you call me?" She shook her head weakly. "I didn't want to drag you into this." "You're not dragging me," he said, voice raw. "I'm here because I want to be." He reached for Lucy with steady hands. "Come on, I'm taking you both to the hospital. Now." Elena hesitated only a second before the weight of everything fear, exhaustion, the world's judgment finally cracked her resolve. She let him take Lucy. Adrian wrapped an arm around both of them as they moved through the storm. The rain washed over them, yet Elena felt for the first time that day less alone. Rain blurred the world into streaks of silver as Adrian hurried across the parking lot, carrying Lucy against his chest while Elena struggled to keep up beside him. His coat was soaked, hair dripping, but he didn't slow. Lucy's shallow breaths filled the air between them like fragile, uneven threads. Elena's trembling hand clutched his sleeve. "Are you sure? This hospital looks expensive." Adrian glanced at her, his jaw tight with determination. "It's part of the Aurora Light Fund. Families in need are treated here without cost. Trust me." Elena swallowed hard. Trust. The word felt both dangerous and necessary. Inside, the hospital lobby glowed with warm lights and polished floors. Nurses moved quickly but calmly. Everything looked clean, efficient, nothing like the cramped clinic they had just fled. The triage nurse took one look at Lucy's flushed face and ushered them into a room without question. A pediatric doctor arrived immediately, checking Lucy's fever, her breathing, her throat, her pulse. Elena hovered anxiously beside the bed, wringing her hands while Adrian stood steady behind her, a grounding presence. After ordering tests, the doctor offered a reassuring smile. "She's running a high fever, but she's in the right place. We'll take good care of her." As the nurses worked, attaching monitors and starting fluids, Lucy's eyes fluttered open for a moment. She saw Adrian and tried to sit up weakly. "You came back," she whispered, voice raspy. Adrian knelt beside her so she didn't have to lift her head. "Of course I did," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Lucy's small hand reached toward him, but she drifted back to sleep before she could touch him. Elena pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, as if holding in a sob. When the medical team stepped out, she found herself sinking into the nearest chair. "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. "They kept telling me we had to wait. She was getting worse. Her voice cracked. Adrian lowered himself into the chair beside her, careful, gentle. "You did everything right. You got her here. She's safe now." She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "I'm so tired of being alone. Of pretending I don't need help. Every time I've trusted someone, they left. Her father left. My parents left. Everyone leaves. I didn't leave," he said quietly. She looked at him, startled by the intensity in his eyes. He continued, voice low and steady. "I don't intend to." Silence stretched between them, heavy with the unspoken years and the weight of the past they shared. Finally, Elena whispered, Why are you doing all this?" "I don't deserve, Elena," he interrupted gently. "This isn't charity. And it's not about deserving. I care because you're you. Because years ago, you were the girl who made the darkness feel less frightening. Because when your family disappeared overnight, I kept looking for you long after everyone else forgot. And because when I saw you last night, holding your daughter under that broken hallway light," his voice caught briefly, "I realized I still remembered you. And I didn't want to lose you again." Elena's breath shivered. Her walls, the ones she built out of necessity, fear, and survival, wavered. But the fear remained stubborn. What if you change your mind? What if you wake up one day and realize we were nothing like the world you belong to? Instead of answering immediately, Adrian reached into the inner pocket of his coat and pulled out a small white box. "I brought something for you, for both of you." He opened it slowly. Inside lay a brand new vanilla candle, thicker and more polished than the one she'd bought from the convenience store. Tied around it was a delicate card. Adrian handed it to her. Elena unfolded the card with shaking fingers. Written on it in steady handwriting were 6 words, "For the nights you should never face alone." Elena's breath hitched, her eyes filled. She touched the candle as if it were something sacred, because in a way, it was. A bridge between who she had been and who she might become. A reminder of where her courage had started. And a symbol of someone choosing to stay. Just then, Lucy stirred again, her small hand reaching blindly toward the space between them. Adrian leaned forward, taking her hand gently. "I'm here," he whispered. Lucy's eyes half opened. "Chew, don't go." Adrian looked at Elena, asking for permission without words. Elena nodded, barely, but undeniably. He squeezed Lucy's hand. "I won't." Elena covered her mouth as tears finally spilled. Not from fear this time, but from the terrifying, beautiful possibility that maybe, just maybe, she finally wasn't alone. The night at the hospital slowly settled into silence. Lucy slept soundly, her fever lowering with each passing hour, the steady beep of the monitor soothing the air around her. Adrian remained beside her bed, his hand resting lightly on the rail as if guarding her from anything that might stir in the dark. Elena sat across from him, the small white box with the new vanilla candle resting in her lap. She kept turning it gently, the soft ribbon brushing against her thumb. For the first time in years, the room felt safe, warm, not because of the machines or the bright lights, but because someone was there, truly there, without expecting her to stand alone. When Lucy was cleared for discharge the next afternoon, Relief washed through Elena so strongly she almost swayed. Adrian handled the paperwork, carried Lucy to the car, and drove them back to their building. But instead of dropping them off at the curb the way he had the first night, he walked them all the way up the stairs, steadying Elena whenever exhaustion wavered her steps. At the door, he hesitated, as though giving her space to step back into her world if she needed to. She didn't. "Thank you," Elena said softly. "For everything." "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "I'm just glad you let me be here." She didn't know what to say to that, so she simply nodded and let him go for the moment. Time passed 1 month, then 2, then a gentle gradual year. A year that unfolded not with dramatic declarations, but with quiet transformations. Elena found herself breathing easier. She applied for and received a position at the Aurora Community Center, Adrian's suggestion, but earned entirely on her merit. Her days were spent helping families who reminded her of who she once was, lost in the dark, holding on to thin strands of hope. The work was steady, grounding, meaningful. Lucy flourished too, her health restored, her confidence blossoming in safe classrooms and new friendships. She talked about Adrian constantly, though Elena never corrected her when she called him "my almost dad friend." Adrian visited often, but never in ways that overwhelmed. He showed up for school pickups when Elena worked late. He brought small pastries during her lunch breaks. He attended parent-child reading nights with Lucy, sitting cross-legged on the carpet like he belonged there. He blended into their lives with gentle persistence, letting their rhythm become his own instead of trying to change it. Eventually, the apartment changed too. With Elena's new income and the building's occasional repairs, the peeling paint was patched, the drafty window was sealed, and the once dark hallway light was replaced with a soft, reliable glow. One evening in early spring, Elena found an envelope slipped under her door, a notice from the landlord announcing a rent decrease thanks to a new subsidy program sponsored by the Aurora Foundation. Adrian never mentioned it, and she never asked, but she knew. He wasn't trying to rescue her. He was trying to make sure people like her never had to choose between light and survival. But the true shift, the one that mattered, happened quietly on a night in December, exactly 1 year after the evening at the convenience store. They were celebrating Lucy's 7th birthday in the small apartment. Elena had baked a simple round cake, uneven on the sides but filled with her daughter's favorite strawberries. Adrian arrived early, carrying a bundle of paper lanterns and a silly birthday hat he insisted everyone wear. Lucy giggled as she placed hers crookily on his head. When the lights dimmed for the candle, Elena reached into a drawer and carefully pulled out a tiny object wrapped in cloth. The original vanilla candle, the one she had bought that rainy night, melted halfway down but still intact at the base. She placed it gently atop the cake and lit it. The flame flickered to life, soft and golden. Lucy's eyes widened in wonder. "Mommy, why this one?" Elena smiled. "Because this candle started everything." Lucy closed her eyes and made a wish, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wish our home stays warm forever." Adrian's hand brushed Elena's as they leaned closer to watch the flame. He didn't move away. Instead, he let his fingers settle over hers, a question without words. Elena turned her palm up and intertwined their fingers, answering without speaking. The flame glowed brighter for a moment, as if agreeing. Adrian looked at her with a softness she had once feared, but now welcomed. "This light won't go out," he said quietly. "Not anymore. Not as long as we keep it together." Elena felt her chest tighten, but not from fear this time, from gratitude so deep it filled every part of her. She glanced at Lucy, who hugged her bear and beamed at both of them. "I'm not scared of the dark anymore," Lucy announced proudly. "Because I have 2 lights now." Elena's breath caught. Adrian smiled. And in the tiny apartment, illuminated by one imperfect candle, their small family finally felt complete.